I was born in 1965, so I was the generation, like the women had just come into their own, like the women's lib movement had just been born. I was going to fulfill on all of that. That's my generation. And my mother would stand with me at Lubavitcher Center, like holding my hand really tight in the women's section. And she would say to me, anything but this. But I felt immediately attached to the Lubavitcher Rebbe. Like all of a sudden, he was mine. But more than he was mine, like I was his. I really wanted to make my life purpose something that would, that would make it worth it for the Rebbe to do what the Rebbe did for me, that I should like give back.
Welcome to Ordinary People with Extraordinary Stories. I'm Chana Weisberg, host of this podcast. I am so excited to introduce you to today's guest. Her name is Holly Cohen. She is the CEO and founder of Tamim Schools. And I really was so excited about her story. I didn't know about her story. I knew she was the founder of the school, which she'll tell you all about, but I didn't know the incredible story that came with the founding of the story. And it just really goes to show how one person can make such an impact. Welcome, Holly. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, people are going to be wondering, what is Tamim School? And you want to start with that, and then we'll get into how it came about.
Yeah, so Tamim Academy is a network of Jewish day schools across North America. And the idea behind our schools is that we want as many Jewish children as possible to attend a Jewish day school. And what we saw was that there were a lot of Chabad preschools around the country. And most of the children who go to those Chabad preschools leave after preschool. And we thought to ourselves, what if we made it possible to create an elementary school that would flow naturally from that preschool? And that's really sort of like was the genesis of Tamim Academy, like what we were thinking we wanted to do. And our schools they're called Tamim. So we wanted actually a word that would be, easy for regular people to say, and a concept of, that every human, every child is whole and complete.
Which the word Tamim means. That's
which is what the word Tamim means. Right? And then I think, because we are who we are, there's definitely, this connection to Tomchei Tamimim and the first schools that were created by Chabad when I think the Frierdiker Rebbe came to America and created the Tomchei Tamimim schools. So
it's a nice play on that, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a little bit of a play. It's like a little bit of a riff on it that we want. If you know, right? But even if you, which is a beautiful thing, but even if you don't know, the whole concept of a tamim isn't that what we want for our children today? Don't we want them to understand that who they are, they're whole, they're complete, and we want to really develop that nature of theirs in our schools.
For sure. Absolutely. So tell us how it all came about. First, let's start with your background. I understand you weren't always Chabad, and this wasn't something that you had a dream from when you were a little child of what you were going to do. There's quite a journey to get there.
Right. So my background is, I had a beautiful kind of like growing up. I grew up, I'm an only child of two amazing parents. And actually
where did you grow up?
I'll tell you, I grew up in suburban Philadelphia, very close to where I live today. And I'm like a Philadelphian. I'm one of these people who, like my great grandparents grew up in Philadelphia. We're Philly people.
I didn't know it was a thing. Philadelphia.
It's a big thing. And of course, I don't know where you are actually. Are you in New York?
We're now in New York, but I'm originally from Toronto.
So New Yorkers don't really get this about Philadelphia. I know when one of my kids got married, people were like, will people come to Philadelphia for a wedding? We think so. Anyway, so I'm a Philadelphian, and it's a thing. Excuse me. And I grew up in suburban Philadelphia. Actually, when I was 8 years old, my parents in 1974, so anyone can do the math. Um, my parents made Aliyah very shortly after the
Mm,
Yom Kippur War in 1973. My parents were feeling very connected to Israel and really wanted to make a difference. And they picked us up, our family, and we made Aliyah. And we did not last for an entire year. It was a very difficult time in Israel. The country was very devastated from the
mhm,
war, and their like the ability to absorb the immigrants was not great. Um,
right.
and after less than a year, we came back to the United States. And when we
Mm,
came back, I had gone to public school before that, like through third grade. And when we came back, my parents just did not want to put me back in public school. They had sort of, I guess, imagined that I would be Israeli, and that's how I
mhm,
would for sure identify as a Jewish person. I would be an Israeli girl and grown up. Um, but when that did not happen, they kind of reassessed the situation and said, well, we're going to put her in Jewish day school. And I was not
mm.
happy about it because I just wanted to go back where I came from. It was a lot of tumult in like 1 year, you know?
Right,
Um,
that's a lot of
but
change.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and Israel in
You were what,
1974
like
was
9, 10? How old
I
were you
was
at the
I
time?
was 8 or
8
9 in
years
the
old?
process. Yeah.
Mm,
I mean,
wow,
Israel was not in 1974 what it is today. Um,
right.
and when we came back, my
And
parents
you were
put
an only
me
child, right? You were an only
yeah.
child? Yes.
Yes, I
Okay.
was and I am an only child.
Right.
And my parents, when we came back, my parents just said, "Look, this is where you're going to school." And they put me in the local Jewish day school.
Mhm,
Um, and I was, very lost. I could speak a beautiful Hebrew, but I was very lost. But it just started something in, I guess, like the way I was raised that, being a Jew is kind of like that is the primary thing.
mhm,
Everything I in being raised that way, everything I did was through the lens of being a Jewish person in the world.
mhm,
Um,
mhm.
so it
Were
was
you
not a
religious at the time? Were you observant at the time?
we were not religious. We were not like super observant, but we did have a lot. Like I had a
Mm,
lot growing up. I had a Shabbat dinner every Friday night, which we called Friday night dinner. But
mhm,
I was never allowed out on Friday nights. We had dinner with my mother's with my aunt and uncle and their family, my cousins and my grandparents, every single Friday night for like my entire life growing
mm,
up. And I went to Jewish day school, and when I finished the elementary school in sixth grade, my parents then put me in the next school, which was the middle through high
middle
school. So I
school.
went
Mhm,
to Jewish day school from the time I was 8 years old until I was 17 when I graduated from 12th grade.
mm.
And
Wow.
then I went to NYU and I studied Near Eastern language and literature and comparative religion. And after
Why did you choose comparative religion? Was there something in your like, you were
um,
seeking or it just
I
was
don't no, I don't think I
no?
was seeking. I think I was just interested.
Mhm,
And if I'm really honest, there were some really great professors who, I think I was very drawn to, and I don't know. I think I am a bit of a seeker. I'm always asking questions and kind of like wondering what we're doing here, and so I think I wasn't like seeking outside my own. Wasn't seeking to become like something else, but
right.
I'm curious, and
Mm,
I think spiritual things are um, like it's always been important to me that the spiritual is like in us.
mhm,
So I think I was curious about that.
mm,
Um, and then after that, like I did what kids my age did at that time. I went to Israel. I lived on a kibbutz for a year, not a religious kibbutz. Um, I was very attached to the land of Israel. And then eventually, after I had kind of like had my fun, I moved back to Philadelphia. I came back. I lived in New York. It's funny. I lived in Park Slope, like, a mile away from Crown Heights. And I just was not like, I knew a little bit what was going on there in the early 90s, but I just wasn't like I thought it was a little odd. I wasn't so attached or anything.
right.
And, um, and then I just decided it was time to get on with my life, and I applied to law school um, and matriculated into law school here in Philadelphia. Moved back to Philadelphia, and that's kind of like how it all that's where it all sort of really started to begin in terms of how I developed my adult life. And just in terms of the Lubavitch thing, I wanted to just tell you, I think
Yeah,
I
I was
had.
gonna say, was there any exposure to any Chabad, like, even in
Yes.
Philly?
Yeah. So my mother had a very close friend who went to the Lubavitch, the original Lubavitch shul, the original Lubavitch synagogue or center here in Philadelphia, which is Rabbi Avraham and Batsheva Shem Tov's center. And we
Mm,
had a very close friend who went there. And so, like, probably like 2 or 3 times a year, my mom would take me there because we were going to go to our friend's house for lunch. So, like, to be nice, polite, we would go there for
to attend.
services on Shabbat
Right.
morning. And we did go to synagogue on Shabbat morning, like all the time at our conservative synagogue. I laned my whole bat mitzvah portion,
Oh, wow.
Parshat Emor, on the
Wow.
second day of Pesach. Yeah.
I bet you still remember it.
Totally. Yeah, totally. So anyway, we would go, and my mom, because I think I had said this, that I was born in 1965. So I was the generation, like the women had just come into their own. Like the women's lib
Mhm.
movement had just been born. And I was like the child of a woman where, like, I was going to fulfill on all of that.
Mhm.
That's my generation.
Mhm.
And my mother would stand with me at Lubavitcher Center, like holding my hand really tight in the women's section. And she would say to me, anything but this. It's like crazy. And she
What
didn't
do you think
mean.
she meant? Like,
You
what
did
did she
right.
mean?
She didn't mean this. She meant, like, you're a free woman. And she did
Right.
not have the knowledge, nor did
She
I
didn't see the
have.
Chabad women as free women at the
Right. She
time.
didn't see the Chabad woman as a free woman. She didn't understand, like, what we were doing behind the mechitza, as opposed
Mhm,
to
mhm,
doing what the men were doing. So
mhm.
it was funny. Like, I didn't have any negativity about it. And my mother is a very like warm and open person. She just was of a certain generation, and she wanted certain things for her daughter, her only child. And
Right.
one of those things is she wanted a certain amount of freedom for me,
Mm,
and like empowerment that she couldn't see in that space,
mhm,
in that
mhm.
moment. So anyway,
That's
that was kind of like my
Isn't it
first.
funny? The ones that usually say anything but this or not this,
Yeah,
are the
yeah,
ones that end up right.
exactly. So
Well,
I'll
but
tell
that's why
a
you
like.
also became like a lawyer, right? You were like,
Yeah,
you
I was going to take on the world. Like, I became a lawyer, and yeah, it never occurred to me to like, not aggressively pursue a career.
Mhm,
I was just, this was kind of like born into me.
mhm,
I
mhm,
really was like that exact generation of, like, okay, like, we fought for our equality, and, like,
mhm,
this is what it's going to look like. That's
right.
exactly where I was born.
Mhm,
um, so I went to law school, and I had a great time, and I loved it. And um, yeah, I loved it. And after law school, or as law school was sort of winding up, I thought I was going to move back to Israel. I had a very close friend who had made Aliyah. And on my spring break, I went to Israel to kind of figure out, I was still always very attached to Israel. And on my spring break, I went to Israel for a couple of weeks to just do the research and figure out what it would take to become a lawyer in Israel when I graduated. And when I came back from that, I was in Center City, Philadelphia, part of sort of like what I didn't even realize was a Chabad young professional scene.
mm,
I
mm,
just was going to this synagogue with some other friends of mine, who were also kind of exploring more attachment to Judaism in a more, like, in ways with more observance. And so
mhm,
we were going to this Orthodox shul, and one Friday night, there was like what I didn't, again, like now I look back and I say to myself, like, oh, I was one of those young professionals going to a young professional Shabbat dinner when the whole goal is they're just trying to get Jews to marry Jews. Like
Right.
that's the whole thing, right? Um, but
But you didn't realize that at the time,
I
right?
didn't realize. I was just like, I was there and I loved the rabbis um, and I after services, I went upstairs where the meal was going to be, and I looked across the room, and I just saw this man who was like, I don't know, I just thought he was shining, and he
Mm.
was wearing like Chassidic garb. He was wearing a kapata and a black hat, and he had these three little gorgeous, adorable children, little girls attached to him, like holding one on his side, one holding his leg. And I looked at my friend who had come with at the time and I was like, oh, look at that. You know,
Yeah.
all the cute ones are married. I'm sure his wife is home with the baby. And she said, oh no, that's my friend Labe. He's divorced. And
Mm.
I like actually had a thought, oh, he's the one for me. Like
Mm.
I don't know what.
It's incredible that you had that insight.
Yeah, I really had it was like those actual words. He's the one for me. Um and
And it
I
didn't
felt
bother you that he was wearing those clothing and he was dressed so religiously?
I don't know, I was just so surprised.
Mm.
I really had a feeling. Like I really had
It was your soul talking to you,
it
right?
was really my
Yeah.
soul talking to
Yeah.
no, I'm like that just makes me want
Yeah.
to cry when you said
Yeah.
that. Oh my god. I actually think it was my soul talking to me because it wasn't like anything that I consciously thought. I didn't like look at him and
And it didn't make
think about
sense
him.
rationally.
It made 0 sense at all. He had 3 little children attached to him, and it was
Right.
like, "What?" But I heard the words in my head, "He's the one for me."
Wow.
Anyway, I don't know. I did what, like, modern empowered women do, the ones who, like, grew up in the, like, bastion of the women's lib movement and, thought they could have everything, and I just went and, figured out how to, like, get in his purview and get to know him a little bit and, just really try to learn more about him, and my rabbi, who's Rabbi Menachem Schmidt, would say things like, "Oh, no, I don't know about this, Holly. This is not like I don't know if this is like the direction. Your parents are gonna kill you. Like, what are you thinking?" But yeah, I wasn't thinking. I was like, I was just having an experience. And anyway, we did really get to know each other.
Did
And
did he come from your background as well? Like, did he come from
yes. So he's also about teshuvah, but he had become observant like many years before. So
right.
his story is a little bit just so to fill you in here. His story is a little bit like he had been married. He was a big Deadhead, like a Grateful Dead
Mm,
groupie. He's been to like over 300 Grateful Dead shows, and he had been married, and it did not work out with him and his wife, with him and his first wife, and they divorced. And the children were very, very small when this happened. Like our youngest daughter was only, I think, 15 months old when they split.
mm,
So they had a very amicable separation and divorce. And she went on and married someone else, and we met and we got married. But the real, like, I think the real sadness in all of it is that soon after they split, she found out that she was very, very sick.
mm,
And after like a few years of battling, she passed away.
mm.
So when we got married, we had these. I think for me, I mean, I don't even think for me. I know for me that the girls were totally a part of the package. Like
Mm.
I really, I don't want to say like, I mean, I feel like I was as attracted to them as I was to him. Like
That's very interesting. That's
there was
very
like a,
unusual. No?
yes, I mean, now like almost 30 years later,
Mm,
as I see other people's lives and lives unfold, yes, I do think it probably was a little bit unusual. I always loved kids. I always like, and it's so silly, but like I used to babysit all the time and I loved babies and I loved kids. And I always wanted a big family because as an only child, I
mm.
I meet other only children, and oftentimes, like, they either loved being an only child and they just wanted to like perpetuate that and they have one, or they're like me and they wanted to have, I mean, I love my life, but I wanted to
But
have a
you
lot
wanted
of
more.
children. And here
Right.
I was already 30 years old and
Mhm.
finishing law school. And so,
And you had your life in front of you,
and I
you
had my
know?
life in front of me, but I'm saying, like, just starting out, it was like, to me, the idea that he had 3 kids was, like, enriching. It
Wow.
was exciting, and they were just, like, they're so cute.
Yeah.
They're just so, like, adorable and beautiful and sweet, and, you know what? They called him Tati, and I had never heard that before.
Wow.
Um, but I was like, "Oh, that's so lovely and
And
charming," and
he had custody of the children, like, they were with him the whole time? Even
They had shared custody, so
custody?
he had them, like, Thursday to Sunday, and she had them Sunday to Thursday, and so he had
Mhm.
them a lot of the time.
Mhm.
And we, anyway, we, like, it wasn't, like, so simple, and I think it was a little bit of a shock to the system for my parents, like, this was not exactly
I'm
what they
sure.
what they were
Yeah.
imagining.
I'm sure.
Um, but yeah, like, we fell in love and we got married, and,
Wow. What a love story.
it really, yeah, it is. And
What
I mean,
what
I don't
was your
wanna
parents' what was your
I was
parents'
gonna say,
reaction
I
to
don't wanna, like, fairy tale it, like, we certainly had our challenges,
Right.
and I mean, also, we got married, and a year and a half later, his ex-wife passed away,
Mhm.
and 1 month and 4 days, because yes, indeed, I was counting the days, I had a baby. I had a baby,
Wow.
my
Wow.
first baby. So,
Wow.
there was a lot of intensity, but my parents are amazing people. I mean, look, I'm their only child, and, they're amazing people, and, like, we got married and my parents just jumped in, and it was also very exciting for them. Like, they went from having 0 grandchildren to
Right.
having 3 grandchildren, and then
Right.
4 grandchildren, and then we ultimately had a 5th child. So we have 3
Mhm.
girls and 2 boys.
Wow.
And I always did think that that was sort of like nice that Hashem made the kids that we had together boys, because we had our
Right.
girls and then we had our boys,
Right.
and it was very, like, sensitive, I think. Um,
And I guess the girls accepted you as, like, a full mother.
yeah, oh, for sure. I mean,
Mhm. They were
it's funny.
young, right?
They were really young, and I think they didn't super even remember their parents together because they were so
Mhm.
young when their parents split, and
Mhm.
then their mother got sick right away
Mm.
after they split, so they spent a lot of extra time with their father. And I don't know, kids are resilient, and
Mm.
they want to survive. So I think at some level, you start to, as a child, maybe look at a situation and see, like, well, it looks like it may not be going so well over here, but over here it feels like pretty stable and strong.
Mhm.
And
Right.
I think that they really, they cleaved to me in a
Mm.
way. Like, I think it's not a usual situation, right? Where, like, um a parent dies, usually, like, a parent dies and then the other parent remarries, and that new mother or father has to create a relationship. And in
Right.
our situation, it was quite different because we were together, for some
Before
time
they already had a
before,
relationship with
and we
you.
already
Right.
had the relationship. So it was like, yes, very like, serious that my daughters lost a mother, but, like, they
Mhm.
had a mother who
Right.
was holding them when they lost their
Mhm.
mother.
Mhm.
So I think that is a quite a different type of situation.
And how was it for you, like, the single girl, the single woman, to go into motherhood so quickly?
To me, it felt very natural. It's something that I had always really, really wanted and looked forward to. So
Mhm.
I was just a little bit happy that I had almost, like, caught up in some ways.
Interesting. Right.
Like, I always say, I was 22 years old when my first daughter was born. I was 30, like, or maybe 29 when I met her. But
Right.
so
Right.
for me, it was like a big catch up. And I'll tell you, like, as time went on, I became a grandmother at 45.
Wow.
Like, that is just, I could not,
Nothing
like,
better than that, right?
oh my gosh, yeah,
Yeah.
just incredible.
Yeah.
So, again, I don't wanna, like,
Right, I'm
poof
sure there was
myself.
hard times, sure.
Yeah, I'm saying I don't wanna poof
Getting used
myself up,
to it.
like, like worse, like I'm so amazing and I did this thing. But my husband and I think really did do something. I think that we had a situation that could have gone a lot of ways, and I've
Mm,
seen it go a lot of ways, and we were far from perfect, and we definitely had our very difficult times, and um, times when we thought it was going to all fall apart, and
mm,
um, many times, even now, of like questioning, like, when we did it that way, was that the right way? Should we have done it a different way? Would
mm,
things have turned out differently? Would that have been better for this one or that one? But I mean, I think all things being equal, we're like a very whole family. And when I
mm,
look at our family today and I think of like like the conflicts that we have, or the challenges we have in like family dynamics, they feel pretty normal. Like,
mm.
not because of our particular circumstance, just because, like, I don't know, you have 5 kids, and like they
Right.
start getting married and they start having kids, and like, there are dynamics. But
Right.
I think
What
we feel very, very blessed. We feel very,
amazing.
very blessed.
Wow.
Yeah.
What about the difference in your level of observance? Like, he was wearing all the clothing of
Yeah.
Chabad, he was fully integrated in that life, and were
Yeah.
you? Was that something
No,
you used to?
no, I was
So tell
definitely
us on that,
not.
take us on that journey.
Yeah. So I think that I had a really strong Jewish background, as I mentioned. Like, I went all through Jewish day school. I also went to Jewish camp, like overnight camp. And I felt like at an early age, more from out of a camp experience, I would say, than from a day school experience, that like someday when I got married and had kids, I think I wanted to be like Sabbath observant. Always
Mhm,
kept kosher, like not like
mhm,
I keep kosher today, but I always kept like a pretty high level of kashrut. But I did have this sense that I wanted to like have a Sabbath observant home.
mhm,
So I knew that I wanted to be kind of more like in the world of, I guess today, what we would just say, like, I guess, modern Orthodox, right?
mhm,
Where I was
mhm,
Sabbath observant, kept kosher, sent my kids to Jewish day school. I was definitely thinking about that as I was getting older. And in fact, I think one of the reasons why I started even going to this synagogue in Center City, Philadelphia, was because I thought, like, well, if you want to marry a guy who's Orthodox, you should
mhm,
probably go hang out where there are some Orthodox guys.
mhm, mhm.
So what I was not contemplating was that I would like fall in love with my husband, who was sort of like
Right,
already on this whole Lubavitch journey. So when we
right.
got married, I was already Shomer Shabbat, like, Sabbath observant when we got married, and keeping kosher, not to his level, but that didn't seem like a big deal to me. But I was not at all like deeply connected to Chabad or anything.
Mm,
I was like very Jewish, but not Lubavitch in any sort of way. I had never learned Chabad Hasidus, really. I mean, a little bit like in my journey in Center City, Philadelphia as a young professional, but nothing serious. Um, and But I was okay with it. Like, I didn't see it as anything negative. I saw like the positivity of it, and like Chabad is there's so much warmth, and there was so much singing, and
mm,
there was so much joy. Like, there was just
mm,
so much joy. My husband is very joyful, and there was just a lot of joy. So I was very attracted to it, and I was open, but I didn't like take on every Lubavitch custom right at the beginning. I gave myself space to be who I am, and my husband also gave me space for that.
mhm.
Like, I, I I did struggle a lot in the hair covering, which I did from literally like the day after I got married,
Oh, wow.
because I knew that that was something that was super important to him. But that was that was. I mean, I think I would just be honest and say that it's not my favorite mitzvah.
Right.
It's
Well,
like,
you look great with your
thank
wig.
you. It's been like a
It's a
very
hard
long
journey,
journey,
sure, sure.
but it's still not my favorite one.
Right.
But
So it sounds like
but
you were doing a lot of this stuff, but kinda like a little bit from the outsider looking in kind of thing?
yeah, and I don't even want to say like like I mean, I kind of do want to say like a little bit fake it till you make it kind of
Right.
thing,
Mhm.
like I remember reading this piece about um like a woman in Israel who's maybe a surgeon or something. And she said that, when she became a surgeon, how she became, and like she went to medical school and she did her residency, but actually how she became a really great surgeon was by doing lots and lots and lots of
Mm,
surgery.
mm,
And
mm.
that, why would anyone expect to become great at something, or like have something become like a very big, meaningful part of your life if you don't do it?
To it, right,
So I think I just kind of felt like this is not a bad thing to be doing.
right,
There's something, this is like good. This is all
right.
good. So what's the
Just
big
jump
deal
in,
if, yeah. So like,
right,
what's the big deal if I'm not like 100%, my brain isn't 100% like inside every single thing I do? Like I'll get there, but like
right,
I need to do it to get there. I
right.
think is a kind of was a big mindset that I had at the time.
Was there ever a defining moment when you felt like, "Okay, this is me?"
Yeah. So I went to a class of a rabbi. I went to my husband and I went to a JLI retreat. It's a national Jewish retreat put on by the World Jewish Learning Institute. And I went to this class by a rabbi named Rabbi Benjamin Blech, who was the rabbi for many years, the rabbi of a very large congregation in West Hempstead, New York. And um, he's like a really lovely modern Orthodox rabbi. He's also like a professor or rebbe at Yeshiva University, and he gave this talk called a chassid in camouflage. And
Mm,
he said he was this chassid in camouflage. And I went to this talk and I didn't know really exactly what to expect. Anyway, he started talking about how it's like a few pieces, but he first started saying how this idea of a Baal Teshuvah is a relatively new concept in Judaism. That like back when his father had been in a rebbe in Switzerland in like the 1920s or something like that, they had heard of one Baal Teshuvah. It was like a concept that no one had even heard of. And here we are living in this world where there are so many. And then he started to talk about the Lubavitcher Rebbe, with whom he had a very, very close relationship and very much considered himself to be a chassid of the Rebbe. And so then Rabbi Blech starts to talk about the Lubavitcher Rebbe and how there was no such thing as a Baal Teshuvah. And then the Lubavitcher Rebbe came and he started sending his emissaries all over the world and to places where like, why would you need a Lubavitch emissary in,
mm,
Thailand? And why do you need someone in like Montana and all these places where like, why are you sending all these people? Like, what's people
such
really, I
far out
mean, I
places.
don't know if you remember, but like, I actually remember this as a person, like at the time, among the people who were like, what is he doing? Like, this is
Mhm,
crazy.
right,
What is this about?
for sure.
And what Rabbi Blech explains, and I think this is something that is original to him, is that this was like the generation when the Rebbe started to do this. This was a very post-Holocaust generation, right? This started in like the 60s and the 70s. We were not
Mm,
so far away from the devastation of the Holocaust. And that in the Holocaust, there were like 1 million children who were murdered, and that
mm,
these million children, that the Rebbe, as the leader of our generation and is connected to every Jewish soul, the Rebbe could see all the souls, and the Rebbe knew
mm,
when souls were coming back to the world. And the Rebbe saw that there was like 1 million Jewish children who had been unable to fulfill, one way or another, on
mm,
their Jewish mission, on their soul mission, and they were all coming back. And that
mm,
the devastation of the Holocaust had been so like almost complete, that there were so many fewer Jews in the world. And there certainly were not a lot of observant Jewish families in the world because they had been just decimated. And that
mm,
these souls were coming back, and that they were not going to be coming back into the kind of families that perhaps they had been born into. They were going to
mm,
be coming back into Jewish families, like wherever Hashem could put them, wherever they could be born, that's where they were going to be born. And the Rebbe sent the shluchim, his emissaries out all over the world to sort of like be there for these children and their families as they would grow up and start to maybe seek a Jewish life, that the shluchim would just be there in all these places that everyone thought like, why?
Mm.
And when I heard this, I still, it's hard for me to find the words. When I heard this, my whole life all of a sudden made sense, because I had this great life. I had this like basically very blessed, almost like charmed life. I was Jewish. I had loving parents. I never was hungry or didn't have clothes. Like I had everything. And like I found myself in this Lubavitch world. And I'm just like, I would think to myself sometimes, like, what am I doing? Like, what am I doing? How did this
Right.
happen? Like, why didn't I just marry like some nice conservative Jewish boy and like perpetuate the life that I had? It was such a nice life. And like it would have been so easy. But here I found myself in the midst of like this Lubavitch world with this like Lubavitch husband, and we're raising Lubavitch kids. And all of the time I just felt like a little bit out of place.
Mm.
And then I heard this story and I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. This is me. I'm one of those souls. The Rebbe totally
Mm.
did this for me. And everything just changed. I know this sounds very dramatic, but I felt immediately attached to the Lubavitcher Rebbe.
Mm.
Like I became so curious. Like now it makes me like really teary.
Yeah. I'm about
It's
to tear. This is so emotional,
it's
right?
really like it's like really something for me. I became so attached. I felt like, oh my God, this guy who like I had heard of my whole life. Like I said, I had lived in Brooklyn, right down the street. Like all of a sudden, he was mine. But
Mm.
more than he was mine, like I was his, right?
Mm.
Like I was his and I was here, and he clearly wanted me here and wanted me to have this life. And like, it's crazy how it all unfolded, right? It's so
Yeah.
everything was
Almost like
so
you were pulled
unlikely.
in, like it was a magnet just
It was
ju
like a
just drawing you
yes,
in. Yeah.
it was like I was pulled in, and even after I was pulled in, I didn't even really know what I was doing here.
Right.
But
Yeah.
then all of a sudden I knew. And really like from that moment, I felt like every class I went to, every shaliach that I met, every experience that I had was like I literally felt like the Rebbe like prepped the world for me,
Mhm.
right? Like the Rebbe um like the Rebbe prepped the world for me. He made, and then of course not just for me, right? The
Mhm.
Rebbe spent all of his energy and the shluchim that he cultivated and sent out. It was like he totally knew what he was doing.
Mhm.
He was preparing the world for all of us.
Mhm.
And yeah, I felt totally connected.
It was like his
So
grand vision, right? And you were
yeah,
part of
and
that grand vision.
I could just see myself like right how I was right there in it. It was really breathtaking.
Wow.
And it
And
was really life-changing for me.
and in what way was it life-changing? Like, what did you decide then? And how did this Tamim Academy come out
I'll
because
tell
of
you.
that?
So I mean, I think first of all, I just realized that I know it just sounds so silly, but like I really wanted to make the Rebbe proud, right? Like I
Mhm.
really wanted to make my life purpose something that would you know, that would make it worth it for the Rebbe to do what the Rebbe did for me, that I should like give back and
Mhm.
just like do my best. Like, how can I not
Mhm.
do my best now? Right.
Mhm.
And so at the time, I had already shifted out of working as a lawyer I had this incredible opportunity to work for a charitable foundation. It was called the Kohelet Foundation. And the focus of the foundation was Jewish day school. Really, it was one donor, and he just sort of wondered why more Jewish children weren't in Jewish day school. And he
Mhm.
started this foundation to really dig into that and figure out like what we could do. Do we need to make the schools better? Do we just need more scholarships? Like, what do we need to do to get many more children into Jewish day school? And somewhere in there, my attachment to like Chabad and the Rebbe really shifted, like very, I think early on in that part of my career. But um, I started to involve Chabad in our work, like to the extent that I could, to the extent that it was appropriate. I would involve Chabad, and plus, I just had an opportunity to speak to a lot of shluchim in
Mhm.
that work. We did a few programs together with some different groups in Chabad, through the foundation, and I would say to shluchim all the time, like, I don't understand. Like, I'm very focused on Jewish day schools at this point in my life, and I would say to them, like, I don't understand. Like, the Rebbe said, tefillin. And
Mhm.
there's like young boys all over all over the place putting
Yeah.
tefillin on perfect strangers. Hello, are you Jewish? Like, did you put on tefillin today? And getting the most unlikely people, women, into the mikveh. And
Mm.
all women and girls should light Shabbos candles on Friday evening before sundown. And like it's in the New York Times, right?
Mhm.
And I would say to the shluchim, like the campaign of education
Right. What
was
happened?
was like the primary campaign. The Rebbe
Sure.
said, I would watch videos of the Rebbe and I would like read things and all about like I would always like Google things like, the Rebbe and children, the Rebbe and education. And
Mhm.
it was just like the Rebbe was relentless, like
Mhm.
relentless. Like Jewish children have to be in Jewish school. And I saw this one video once that said, if they're in school no days a week, you have to get them in one. If they're in one, then you have to make it two. If it's two, then your
Mhm.
obligation is to make it three. Up and until they're in a Jewish school, a fully kosher Jewish school, 6 days a week. And I would say to the shluchim, like very respectfully, what is going on? Like, where are the schools? Where are the
Right.
schools? And they would say very openly and very honestly, we have preschools, we have excellent Hebrew school, we do lots of Jewish education for kids, but an elementary school where you also have to teach them how to read and write in English, and you have to teach them um, like social studies and science, and like we don't know how to do that. Like, and
Mm.
we don't do things shabby. We're not going to do something that we're not going to be able to do well. That would
Mm.
not be right or fair to our people. But if someone would hand us a school on a silver platter, we would do it. We would find the
Mm.
kids, we would find the teachers, we would find the money, we would find the space, but someone has to make the school part of it like really much easier for us so that we could do it well. And that's when sort of like the wheels started turning in my head. And I was like, okay, I think this is what I'm going to have to do. Um, so at our foundation, we had always had some concepts about like, what could a network of Jewish schools look like? What might that look like? And as time went on, and this foundation, the donor to the foundation, decided that we were going to sunset the foundation after like a 10-year run.
Mhm.
He was really amazing. He asked me like, do you have something that you think you want to do? And I was like, yes, I do. In fact, I do. So he was
Right.
wonderful and actually backed me and supported me in that.
In
Um,
creating Tamim?
yeah, he
Yes.
financially backed us for the first 5 years with some other people as well,
Mhm.
and like some other very unbelievable important people. Um, and so I had the funding, and I just thought, okay, this is crazy. Like, I guess I had this feeling like, look at what Chabad has done with campus. Look at what Chabad has done with, adult education with like JLI. Look
Mm.
what Chabad has done with preschools, and people want to be around this. Chabad really can attract people. I think if we would give Chabad a shot
Mm.
at Jewish day schools, they might just be able to solve it. So the issue that we're trying to solve, just to be clear, is that there are approximately 1.3 million Jewish children, 1.6 million Jewish children in North America. And of those 1.6 million Jewish children, less than 300,000 go to Jewish day school.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
And of
incredible.
those 300,000, we are including in that number all the like yeshivas, the people who live like in LA and New York and Lakewood, like all of the very observant
Wow.
communities, like even the
Sounds like
Hasidic
such a low
communities.
number. Incredible.
It's such a low number. And of those three less than 300,000, only about less than 30,000 of them go to a non-Orthodox school. So like of the
Mm.
300,000, all but about 30,000 fall somewhere on the spectrum of orthodoxy.
Mm.
And so basically 1.3 million non-observant, like children from non-observant families in North America are not, it's just not on their radar. They're not going to
Mm.
Jewish day school. But where a lot of them are is, I mean, not all of them, obviously, but like some solid percentage of them, they're in Chabad preschools. They go to Chabad
Mhm.
preschool. There's over
Mhm.
170 Chabad preschools across North America, and they're all different sort of sizes and shapes, but they have a lot of these kids. And I just kept thinking to myself, what if we made it easy for these people with these preschools to build an
Continue.
elementary school,
Mm.
and we can don't have to do it like we don't have to follow any model of opening a Jewish day school that ever existed before, like where you have to raise $25 million and buy a giant building. No, let's just do it like quietly. Let's just say, okay, we have a program. Our oldest kids are 4 years old. Next year, they're going to kindergarten. Okay, next year, we're going to start a kindergarten. And then the year after
Mm.
that, we're going to add a first grade. And I'm sorry, I feel like something is, and we have a kindergarten, we have a preschool, we'll start a kindergarten, then we'll add a first grade, and we'll just slowly, slowly build up until we have a full K through 8.
Mhm.
And these schools do not have to be gigantic, but they do have to be excellent. They have to be
Mhm.
excellent. So we spent like a year or more, like in 2019, creating like a whole curriculum, in every subject. We wrote a lot of our own curriculum because I think a very big premise of a tamim, right, is that we don't see the world as separate. We don't see the
Mhm.
secular world and the Jewish world. We just know that we live in Hashem's world. And if we're
Mhm.
doing math or if we're doing science or if we're doing social studies, why are we teaching children that you only do one thing in the morning and another thing in the afternoon? Why are we teaching them
Mm.
that these two things are not like merged? That because after all, the whole experience is like through the eyes of a Jewish child.
Mm.
And I think that by doing this, I hope one of the things that we're doing is we are like helping children understand that they are their Jewish selves wherever they are, whatever they're doing. Like there is
Mm.
always an opportunity to bring holiness into whatever it is that they're doing. And I don't know that we do that in our traditional Jewish day schools, to be honest.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think that a lot of kids go to these schools and it's like half the day this and half the day that. And
Mm.
then like when their schooling is over, they just chuck one thing or the other. And like,
Right.
why are we even surprised? We taught them for 12 or 13 years that like never do these two things meet.
Right. So you
And
see it as more synchrony, like they're
yes,
synchronized, yeah.
yes, like very, yes, so very synchronized and very
I mean,
just
that's Chassidic
enmeshed.
philosophy that everything is God driven, right?
A
Everything
hundred
is
percent.
here
So
for a reason. Yes.
exactly. And I think if you would say to me, like, what is the one thing that you want for these children if they, go through your whole school system? It's like, I want them to know who they are in the world, that they are Jewish children, that Hashem put each and every one of them here for a particular mission that only, he or she
Mhm.
is able to achieve. And not just that, but that every moment of our lives and every moment of their lives, you should be, I want them to want to ask the question, like, why is this happening? Why is this happening? Like, what can I do in this moment? What does Hashem want from me in this moment? And I think that we don't have enough of that,
Mhm.
in our schools. And,
That's
and I think
beautiful.
that's also like, that is what it means to be tamim, right? That
Right.
is wholeness,
Whole, right.
wholeness,
Whole with everything, whole with the whole world.
whole with everything in the
Oh,
world.
with
So anyway,
ourselves. Yes, that's beautiful.
yeah.
So you approached Chabad centers and you said this is like we're creating kind of this box almost like
Yeah, I mean, we started really small, and I had, some very smart advisors who are in kind of like in the Chabad world. Um, and everyone said, like, just do it, just do it. Um, don't ask a lot of questions. Don't ask for like permission about a bunch of things. Just make it really good and
just jump
start.
right in.
Just
Right.
jump in and start, like get a proof of concept. So in 2020, we opened our first 4 schools um, in Boca Raton, Greenwich, Connecticut, Burlington, Vermont, and Upper West Side of Manhattan. And yeah, we just started. We started with kindergartens. And then the next year we opened 2 more schools. And then those schools with the kindergartens kind of like added a grade. And then the next year we added more schools, but the schools that existed also added a grade. And I'm not going to lie and say that it was all like perfect. Some of our schools, for very legitimate reasons, really struggled and they weren't always able to add a grade every year. 1 or 2 schools did not really make it. But today we have 22 schools
Incredible.
across North America. We just opened 4 new ones this past like this
This co
month, just
yeah,
last month and
right,
this
right.
month.
Wow.
And we are like I mean, there are 170 preschools across North America. So am I having 170 schools? Probably not, because I think some of them are near each other and can work together. But why we can't get to 50 in another 6 years, add another
Mhm.
30 schools in 6 years, why I can't get to 100 in maybe like 10 years, I see no reason why that should not be like what we are shooting for. And like, again, I get sort of choked up, but I think about like the Rebbe, and I think about being like propelled by the Rebbe. And I could just, again, I never met the Rebbe. Like I never had that, that privilege. But I see the Rebbe talking to the shluchim. I see the Rebbe addressing, the people. And I always hear in these talks, the Rebbe like pushing and pushing and just saying like, why do you think this is enough? Like, why
Right,
should we be satisfied with this?
right.
Like what's next? And I really feel like that is pushing me and propelling me. Like, why? Like, great, 22 schools, why should we be happy with 22 schools? No, like we should get to 30, we should get to 40, we should get to 50. Are we ever going to get all 1.3 million Jewish children in Jewish day school? I hope that Mashiach will be here way before we have time to do that.
I
but
bet you
um
will. I bet you will very quickly. With your
but
determination and resolution, you will.
Yeah, but I'm just gonna keep trying. Like,
Yes,
I'm just gonna keep
exactly.
doing this. Like, this is just what I'm gonna do. I'm just gonna keep doing this, and we'll get as many as we can.
Incredible. So what is your role? Like, what do you do as the CEO and founder of Tamim Academy?
Okay, so I am the person who I guess like I had a lot of the vision about
Mm.
what the education would look like. Um I'm not professionally an educator. I mean, I am the mother of 5 children that I put through all through Jewish day school and think I know something about Jewish education, but I'm not a formal educator. So I did not like build the actual curriculum or lessons or things like that. But I did have this vision of a holistic school
Mhm,
where we don't just tend, like I said, the
mhm,
the in terms of the way we approach many of the subjects, so that it's there's a godliness to things, that we also have very developed systems to help children develop themselves spiritually.
mhm,
I think we
mm,
see it like a lot of schools where kids learn a lot of information, but they are not being cultivated to have a spiritual experience.
mm,
And that I think is really missing. And I think kids really need that. Humans really need that. And
mhm.
that is not something that always comes naturally. That is something that, but it can be learned and it can be developed. So I think I had like these different ideas of what we wanted to touch on at Tamim and what we wanted to focus on. And then I hired an amazing team to actually make that happen. So, like, kind of like big picture like that.
Right.
And then currently, like what I really do is I am the person who does a lot of the development of new communities, like meeting new, shluchim, like going to see preschools, looking at a whole community, and then developing relationships so that people have, like enough knowledge about what we're doing and confidence in us that they're willing to partner with us to build a school. So I do that. And then, of course, what do I do? I'm
Mhm.
fundraising all the
Right.
time because we are
Must be so much
completely,
money. Must be a
yeah,
lot of
it's interesting. Yes, it does cost a lot of money to do what we do, but um, I think one of the other parts that I really wanted to sort of accomplish with Tamim, like a challenge that I wanted to overcome, is this idea that, Jewish day schools have to be like so expensive.
expensive.
So a lot of times we have this idea that these day schools are like, it's like a black hole, the money goes in and like the education isn't so great and where's it all going? And I think one of the things that we've accomplished at Tamim, from a business model, is that a lot of the research and development, teacher training, ongoing teacher coaching, we do all of that
It's all
from the
centralized. Right.
centralized from the HQ level. So, like this
Mhm.
past August and September, we did 3 weeks of training where we trained over 166 teachers in our
Oh,
schools. We
wow.
did it via Zoom,
Mhm.
and we had like entire 3 entire weeks of basically like 9 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon teacher training in our curriculum, in social and emotional, development of children, in teaching how to teach Hebrew, how to teach Chumash, all the things. And I think that those are many times the things that cost a lot of money in
Mhm.
schools. And then they're also the things that cost money in schools kind of leave by the wayside because you feel like you might be able to get away without it and it's so expensive. It's like feels
Mhm.
almost extra. But we do all of that, for our schools so that they're all really operating at a pretty high level from a professional development, teacher training standpoint. We also create, all of the curriculum. A couple of areas of the curriculum we do, like we get outside programs to do it, like let's say for English language arts, but everything else we do ourselves, and we actually deliver it to our teachers at the level of lesson plan, like a
That's
daily
amazing.
lesson plan, because we think that there are a lot of people out there who are still like mission driven and inspired to be teachers, but they don't necessarily have the education or the background, but they want to be there. And we think we can help them be much better teachers by not having them have to spend all their time writing lesson plans, having that done for them, but giving them the opportunity to spend time like learning how to be with their students and know where their students are. So anyway, but this
That's
all costs
amazing.
money.
Kind of like a
So
it's kind of like a
it
franchise school,
it we
where
say
you
that
get
we
those.
say that we
Yeah.
we say that we say franchise like model.
Right.
Sometimes we say authorized dealership, something. But
Right.
yeah, it
Right.
is it is really like it is really a loose franchise. Yeah,
And
it really
how
is
many
like a loose
children
franchise.
are now enrolled in Tamim
So
Academy?
currently we have probably between 600 and 700 children,
Amazing.
in our entire network of 22 schools. Like last year we opened 4 schools and this year we opened 4 schools. And so those schools only have like a kindergarten and a first grade, maybe this year, or
Mhm.
just a kindergarten. And then we have some schools that have actually reached the point of 6th grade.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and they're doing like really beautifully. I mean, and yeah, there are definitely challenges along the way. And I mean, you were asking me what I do every day, so I kind of like do the big picture, and I do a lot of the development of new schools, and I do a lot of fundraising. um, but I think that this is like the most important thing that I don't know what it is, it just in general in the world, like in the Jewish world, there's like all these causes, and they're all really important. And I'm not looking for like anyone to take their charitable donations away from something else, but it is puzzling to me why there aren't more people who like just are not like very dedicated to the idea of educating Jewish children. Like
Sure,
I mean,
for
I'm
sure.
being really honest with you. Like
Yeah.
it's actually puzzling to me because like when you look out sort of at anything in the world, right? Like you want to get them when they're young. Can you
Mm,
imagine, can you imagine what the last year and a half on campus would have looked like if like all those kids had gone to like Tamim Academy or some other Jewish day
mm,
school and they got to campus and they were strong and courageous and knowledgeable? Like you wouldn't have been able to shake them the
mm.
way they were shaken. So it is puzzling. I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there. Like it is puzzling
Right,
to me why educating the children from a very young age is not something that people are not throwing a lot of money at. But
right.
it's not,
Well, now
FYI.
now you're doing it. You're opening the eyes of
Yeah,
people. Absolutely.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
Holly, like, our last question that I have for you, looking back at your, how you have evolved over the years and how you've become so dedicated to this, what would you say to your younger self? And what would you like, what do you think about that self now and how your life kind of became what it became?
Um, I think I would just, oh God, that's a really hard question. It's a really hard question. I mean, like these little thoughts that come to mind are things like, don't second guess yourself.
Mhm,
Kind of like let things flow, trust yourself. Because it is true. Like if I had thought about this being my life, if someone had told me back then that this would be the life that I would have and that this would be my family and this is what I'd be doing every day from a career, I would just be like, what are you
right,
talking about? I would have
right.
never, I would not have even been able to um like conjure up anything that
Mhm,
would make that path that would lead me to that apparent to me.
mhm,
But I
mhm.
do feel that there have been things like that I felt in my gut over the years, right? Like just that weird thing of going to overnight camp and feeling like someday I want to have a Sabbath observant home,
Mm,
right? Or, seeing my husband and just thinking like he's the one for me. Or, I don't know, going to a lecture with Rabbi Blech and hearing what he had to say and just like really allowing myself to feel the things that I felt instead of just thinking like, oh, I must be crazy, right?
right.
Um, and I guess that I would have never said this before. I've never even actually thought this before. But I guess those were like the moments when my soul
Mhm.
was really taking control
Talking
of
to
me,
you.
like
Right.
where my soul was talking to me, where I'm being honest, like I've literally never thought about it like that until you
Mhm,
asked me this question just now. But thinking back, yeah, it must have just been my soul, like seeing that there was a moment or an opportunity or a choice to be made and like pushing me in a particular direction. So I guess, just to be open to those moments and to actually, I mean, I'm actually going to be thinking about this probably for the rest of my life now as I do it. But like when you have those moments to trust that maybe that it is your soul
Right.
talking to you and like have some
Wow.
faith. Um,
Beautiful, really
yeah.
beautiful. And then the nothing but this
Oh
became
yeah.
what?
So this is really funny. So at the end of the day, like after so back to when I was a little kid at Lubavitcher Center with my mother and she's holding my hand all tight and she says, anything but this. And so my husband says, no, what she meant was anything but this. Like this is like the
Wow,
greatest thing ever. So
wow,
she said the words,
amazing,
she just didn't know what she was exactly saying.
beautiful.
So, yeah, I mean, this
This
is
is
like very
beautiful.
blessed, very
I
grateful.
w I wish you continued success, and may you get all those 1.3 million children,
Yeah.
in your
Yeah. Thank
schools,
you. Yeah.
and continued success in everything that you do. It's really
Thank
amazing.
you.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for sharing your story with us.
Yeah, so lovely talking to you. Thank you for inviting me.
Wasn't that just incredible? I loved hearing that story. I loved it because I love hearing how one person can make such a difference, can have such an impact. Holly didn't start her life thinking this is what she wants to be. And sometimes you think like, oh, a shlucha or some emissary of the Rebbe, they started out knowing that this is what they would be. This is their background. This is what they grew up with. Here, Holly started off without any of that. And yet look at her dedication to what she's doing to Jewish children and to the Rebbe's vision of really educating all Jewish people all over the world. And it really goes to show like how one person can make such a difference if we just have the desire to make that change, if we have that desire to make that impact. I loved how Holly said how she felt she just had to give back. Here she was given, this was a gift for her, and here she was just being pulled to give back, to do something valuable with her life. I really also enjoyed how all the different parts of her life were kind of this magnet that was pulling her in a direction. And isn't that so true for us? We sometimes don't see how the dislocated parts of our lives are coming together, but sometimes it's just pulling as our soul, like how she described it, it was just her soul pulling her, a soul pulling her to her husband to be married, and just the events in her life, how it was all pulling her in a certain direction, and how now she looks at it and her life makes so much sense in terms of her purpose and her mission. And it's just so beautiful when you see somebody who really is doing their purpose and mission. If you enjoy watching these interviews, I hope you are subscribed to Chabad.org/extraordinary. If you're watching us on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed, give us a 5-star rating, and please share the videos with your friends. Let them know about this podcast. Let them know, share an episode with them that you think they might enjoy. Leave us your feedback. We love hearing from you. And thank you so much for watching and for being part of this extraordinary community.